Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So I have two articles, and one of the articles is about China's tariffs, and it gives a list of 128 affected goods. And the second article is about China losing this trade war with Donald Trump. So, full list of 128 U.S. products that have been targeted by China's retaliatory tariffs. And this is by Annalisa Morelli, April 2nd, 2018. And so this article, however, you have to excuse me because I had tried to type in China, and I did correct it, so it'll probably show up after this video is completed. So sometimes things happen, but here, pictured here, giving a wave. And so the president of China, I believe, China has made its first move in what now looks like a trade war with the United States. So following its warning on March 23rd, in retaliation for newly announced U.S. tariffs on $50 billion worth of Chinese goods. So China will impose tariffs on 128 U.S. goods effective today. So according to the list that was published by China's Ministry of Commerce, PDF, the tariffs apply to 128 U.S. products. Of the 120 products ranging from dried fruits to stainless steel pipes will receive an extra 15% import tax, while 8 will have to bear a 25% tax hike. So the later category consists of 7 different kinds of pork products, aluminum scrap. According to the data from the ministry, the group of goods taxed at 15% make up $977 million of U.S. exports to China. So the 8 products subject to the 25% tariff make up $1, or no, it's actually not $1. I'm not even looking at the billions, but you have $1.992 billion for an overall total of nearly $3 billion. So in a statement published on China's Ministry of Commerce website, link in Chinese, China accused the U.S. of violating World Trade Organization regulations and announces the suspension of substantiative equal concessions and other obligations to the U.S. to effectively protect China's interests. Below is the full list of the goods that will face tariffs upon import to China. Okay, so China's imports from the U.S. These are the goods that China imports from the U.S. The tariffs start with the fresh fruit, dried fruit, and nut products. And so here's the list. So you have 128 things. So you can just look. I'm going to pan down slow so that you can get a gander of it at least. And there you see the stainless steel pipes. It talks about oil and gas drilling pipes that are made of stainless steel. Okay. So that's basically a list. I'm going up. This is when you get back into the fruit and the foods. So this tariff trade war has affected not only people in the US, but it also has now affected China. And so this article right here is out of the Wall Street Journal. And this one says it's out of commentary and opinion. Now, this is somebody by the name of Donald L. Luskin. China is losing the trade war with Trump, so it's like a drinking contest. You harm yourself and hope the opponent isn't able to withstand as much. So one thing came through loud and clear in President Donald Trump's press conference on Wednesday with European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker, when they announced an alliance against third parties' unfair trading practices. They didn't even have to mention China by name for listeners to know who their target was. Corporations between the US and the EU will squeeze China's protectionist model. And even before this argument, or no, not argument, but agreement, I'm looking now, I'm reading without my glasses. There's been evidence that China is already running up the white flag, okay? So yes, China is acting tough in one sense, but quickly imposing tariffs in retaliation for those enacted by Trump's administration. But while U.S. stocks approach all-time highs and the dollar grows stronger, Chinese stocks are in a bear market, down to about 25% since January. And so the yuan had its worst single month ever in June, and it's well on its way to repeat this month. So Chinese corporate bonds have defaulted at a record rate in the past 6 months. And yet, this week, China unveiled a new stimulus program designed to encourage even more corporate borrowing. So that's probably why Ying Gang, the governor of People's Bank of China, took the extraordinary step of channeling Herbert Hoover, saying in a statement this month that the fundamentals of China's economy are sound, and it's why Sun Guoyufeng, head of the PBOC's Financial Research Institute, said China will not make the yuan exchange rate a tool to cope with trade conflicts. And so weakening one's currency is a standard weapon in the trade war. So that's basically what this whole thing is about, is to weaken the other one's currency. And one of that, China has often been accused of using, including in a tweet by Mr. Trump last week, devaluation would be even more dangerous in the case because of China's power to dump the 1.4 trillion in US Treasury securities it holds. But by denying its intention to plunge the yuan, China has disarmed itself voluntarily. So this was no act of noble pacifism. It had to be done. Devaluing the currency would risk scaring investors away, and existential threat to an emerging economy. And so for China's, whose state capitalism model has so far never been produced a recession, such capital flight might expose previously hidden economic weaknesses. And so you see it here. It's like an image. So the weakness accumulate without the market discipline that occasional recessions impose. So the fragility of China's economy can be seen in its growth rate, which is slowing despite rising financial leverage, and in its over investment in commodities and real estate. And so the escalating trade war with the US could tip China into an unknown territory of recession. And then capital flight could push it into a financial crash and depression. So that would create mass joblessness. And in an economy that has never recorded unemployment higher than 4.3%, with that scenario in mind, the Chinese government must be wondering whether it has enough riot police, because that would cause a major riot. And so the risk of capital flight is real. And so the last time China let the yuan weaken, a slide that began in early 2014, and it was punctuated in the mid-2015 by the abandonment of the dollar peg in favor of a basket of currencies. So the Chinese ended up losing almost $1 trillion in foreign reserves, which they have yet to recover. And so now the sharp weakening of the yuan, now correct me if I'm wrong, I may be saying that wrong, are not pronouncing it the right way, because it's, I guess, meant to be said a different way. It shows some degree of capital flight again is underway. Excuse me for yawning, but no wonder that despite tough talk from some quarters, the PBOC disarmed itself voluntarily to avoid further capital flight. So the bank also is already offering to reimburse local firms for tariffs on the imported U.S. goods. So what's more, China has put out a yard sign for international investors by announcing unilateral easing of foreign ownership restrictions in some industries. China is beginning to realize that trade war isn't really war. It's more like a drinking contest at a fraternity party. The game is less inflicting harm on your opponent than inflicting it on yourself, turn by turn. So the trade wars nation impose burdensome imports tariffs on themselves in the hope that they'll be able to stomach the pain later than their competitors. And so why play such a game? Because a carefully chosen act of self-harm can be an investment towards a worthy goal. However, for example, President Reagan's arms race against the Soviet Union in the 1980s was in some sense a costly self-imposed tax. but it turned out that the U.S. could bear the Russian bear and won the Cold War. So the U.S. will win the trade war with China in the same way. And so the PBOC statements show that the Chinese understand they are too vulnerable to take a very, very many more drinks. And so the only question is what will be willing to offer Mr. Trump to get him to take a yes for an answer. So no wonder Beijing has ordered its state-influenced media to stop demonetizing or demonizing, I said demonetizing, demonizing Mr. Trump. And so it's because of this trade war. There's the fighting back and forth, the political fight. And so officials are desperate to minimize the pain when President Xi Jinping has to cut the inevitable deal. And so the drinking contest metaphor that they're using in relation to this trade war takes us only so far. So the wonderful thing about the reciprocal trade is that it is a positive sum game in which all contestants are made better off. So if the conflict forces China to accept more foreign investors and goods comply with World Trade Organization rules and respect foreign intellectual property, it may feel it has lost, but will in fact be better off. With this openness, both economic and political, China could spur a decades-long second wave of growth that would bring hundreds of millions still living in the rural poverty into a glittering new cities. And so it took Nixon to go to China and show it the way to the 20th century. And now through the unlikely method of trade war, Donald Trump is ushering his chief investment officer at the Trend Macroanalytics LLC. And so this appeared July 28th, 2018, print edition. So I just thought that, you know, a lot of people, I don't know if they realize that there's this trade war going on. And they use this metaphor under here. It's like having a drinking contest and you're trying to see which one can withstand the punishment. And so it is actually affecting a lot of people because they mark up on some of the goods and the things that people are eating and that they're using every day. And so it's claiming that China may be losing the war. Now, there's several articles about this. And so it says a trade war America can't afford to lose. So it also goes into our situation here in the U.S., that opinion commentary again, which I don't think it's a bad idea to have opinions as long as they're well thought out, you know, such as these right here tend to be some of the things that I gravitate to. And so the stakes are so high that NAFTA, like rewrite, would be a disaster. So a trade war America cannot afford to lose. This is by Jeff Moon. And so this is October 3rd, 2018. So that brings it a little closer to now. That was a factory worker in China. And this is where he's at. President Trump has raised the stakes so high in his China trade war that he can't afford to lose. So if he comes away with anything less than a deal guaranteeing significant verifiable reforms to Beijing mercantilist trading practices, he risks imperiling American business prospects in China for years. So a settlement that merely tinkers with the status quo, like the recent reworking of the North American Free Trade Agreement, would spell long-term political and economic disaster. And so the Chinese know that the future U.S. presidents are unlikely to match Mr. Trump's rhetoric and personal political investment in trade issues. Beijing would interpret that any unfulfilled threat from Mr. Trump as proof that it need never yield to the U.S. trade demands, having shown it can withstand maximum American economic pressure. So Chinese leaders will conclude that they have survived the American best efforts to pry open their markets. And so they will then feel to perpetuate indefinitely their discriminatory trading practices and industrial policies. History provides a cautionary tale that President Clinton threatened during the post-Tiananmen. Now, if I didn't pronounce that right, excuse me. So Tiananmen period to condition. So China's most favored nation trading status on its progress on human rights issues. So after much wrangling, Mr. Clinton realized that he had overplayed his hand. So he backed down in 1994, leaving the affair as a high watermark on American pressure on China over human rights. So the issue subsequently receded into the background of the bilateral relationship to the point that the Trump administration now raises human rights with the Chinese as an afterthought, if at all. So the American business community appears not to appreciate fully the precedent, and they underestimate the danger ahead. Businesses rather, and trade associations overwhelmingly have opposed Donald Trump's tariff policy, and they hope to avoid short-term pain by pressuring the president to withdraw those tariffs. But the long-term stakes of the trade war have increased now that Mr. Trump has escalated the conflict beyond the point of no return. So if Mr. Trump now settles the fight he has picked with China for little or nothing, he will signal that China can ignore long-standing demands into the indefinite future, along with any threat seeking a level playing field for the U.S. business in the Chinese market. And so Mr. Trump is living out an old maximum that you need to be careful what you ask for because you just might get it. And so now that he has the trade war he is so vigorously sought, he bears ultimately responsibility for his gamble over Americans' trade with China. So he better win or else. So this is written by our opinionative section in Wall Street Journal by a Mr. Moon, is a China trade consultant and former assistant of the U.S. Trade Representative for China. So this appeared October 4th, 2018, printed edition. And so basically that's what this big fight is over. And so it affects everyone. And so I saw another article that said that China is starting to get to a place where they possibly can't take any more of the trade war. But we'll see how far this whole thing goes, because if you don't hear anything about, well, you do hear a lot about the trade war. That's one thing. But between all of that, you'll hear things about Kavanaugh being a pick, and by Kavanaugh being the biggest reason why that people should go out and vote. And also this issue with the caravan that is coming from Guatemala, that is at the border between Guatemala and Mexico. And also you have the issues of sexual harassment that has come up because of the hearings that they had between Christine Blasey and then Brett Kavanaugh and how people may interpret that. And so a lot of people have a lot of issues or hot button topics that will bring them out, probably more so to vote than they did than ever before. And this trade war doesn't make it any better, because even though that they're saying that Donald Trump may be winning this, in the long run, people feel as though the companies, I've been hearing, feel as though they've been suffering behind it as a result of it. And so we shall see where it leads us in this trade war. And so I'm going to leave it at this article right here, where it talks about the full list of the items. And under this picture, it says enjoy. So this, I believe, is the president. And this is all of the items. Again, I'm running through. You can just see these are things that you know that people here in the States use a lot of. Even the products, all the way down to gas drilling pipes and oil, stainless steel, some of the other articles of interest that are constantly used and imported here, or actually over there, actually, I believe, because let me look at this. It says below is the full list of the goods that will face tariffs upon import to China. And so these are the things that are, that are sent there to that country. And so there's a tax on it. And so in order for anybody to do any business, you trade between countries, commodities and products and what have you. And so it benefits that country, then it then in turn benefits your country. And so if you have high tax tariffs and things like that on it, high tariffs, it makes it, especially if these are things that are contingent on the longevity and the economy of your country continuing out, it affects you greatly when they, stick, a tariff percentage on it, So that's why this trade war has affected it's not only affecting China, but it's affecting the U.S. But it's like they said when they used this as a euphemism or compared it with this analogy of being in a fraternity, and it's like a drinking contest, and you're trying to see who will hold out the longest, who can suffer the longest. And so far, because China has been trying to do this as retaliatory towards the U.S. because of the Trump administration, what could happen? It could send China in a weakened state on behalf of their economy. And so that is what the big talk is about in terms of this issue right here. And so I know this seems pretty heavy duty, but yeah, I guess that's the boring side of me. But anyway, it is affecting people, or affecting companies rather. And so this is a big thing right here. And so we'll see what this is developing ongoing story and an ongoing fight. And this is one of the big hot button issues that will also make or break the U.S. or this country right here. And so I wanted to add something outside of this. What I've noticed is that a lot of the products that are here, even if you go into, like, let's bring it down to a level where some people can understand this. Like if you go into the 99-cent stores, the Dollar Tree, you notice, like, when you look at the label, everything on it, all the packagings says made in China. A lot of products come here from China. You wouldn't believe. And so a lot of those things that are coming here. Now, I don't know if people talked about this as much, but I heard through reading and through the grapevine, as they say, that some of these products that are coming from China have chemicals in it or certain things in it that are cancer causing. and that the US is sort of like a dumping ground for all of these products. Now, I just want to put this in here to back myself up. So, and so a lot of these products come here to the US, 10 foods made in China that you must avoid, and it's filled with plastic, 6 toxic Chinese products found in the US, 7 foods made in China you must avoid, and there's also products that you wouldn't even believe that are here, not only just foods, but products that people use that have certain chemicals in it that can cause cancer. And so, filled with plastic and pesticides and cancer causing. And so, let's start with, and I know I'm backtracking, and this is going to be previous years, and I don't think a lot of people really realize this, but you know, when you have these products and they're cheap and accessible, and usually they're put in neighborhoods where people are poor, you say, wow, I can get that for $1 or $2. I can get that for really cheap, but what is in it? Okay, so let's start with the 10 foods that are made from China. 10 foods made in China that are filled with plastic, pesticides, and cancer-causing chemicals. Okay, so this was a while ago, but I already had it in my head. It was updated September of 2017, 26th of 2017. So recently I was reading an article about althealthworks.com about fake rice being produced in China. So there's something called fake rice, okay? So some people think even the foods, they're good, they're coming from this place, but you don't know what all is inside of those things. And so I don't think people are really made aware of what's going on. So the rice is being made out of plastic, believe it or not, and no one is doing anything about it. So I know I'm probably the master at bringing about some of the most gripping topics in terms of health and what kind of food scares are out there, but this is true, and I felt this was something that people avoid and don't talk about. And so I'm here to talk about it, and I'm not going to charge you a fee or ask you for a donation to hear it. And so it says that this rice is being made out of plastic, and people are eating it, believe it or not, and no one is doing anything about it. Naturally, as a health advocate, researcher of food and how it is processed, I thought to myself, this is going way too far. Plastic rice, ingesting even small amounts of plastic is horrible for a digestive system and the hormones. So we notice that here in America, a lot of people are coming down with cancer, and people are trying to they're trying to rifle in their head. Is this hereditary? Is it old age? Is it because I'm something that I'm doing? Is it because I'm drinking? What is it that I'm doing? And let's say you don't even really drink that much, or maybe you don't drink at all. So then you say, maybe it's hereditary. And you say, wait a minute. Why is it that I'm getting such an aggressive form? Our people here in the States are getting such an aggressive forms of cancer. So they're ingesting even small amounts of plastic. It's horrible for the digestive system and your hormones. So BPA chemical in plastic mimics estrogen, and this hormone skyrockets in the body when BPA is ingested. So ingest plastic rice, and you're basically asking to die young of breast cancer. And isn't that a really big issue here in the United States, is breast cancer? And we have breast cancer awareness, Walk for Cancer, and all these people women that come down with cancer, people shaving their heads, and they think, oh, it's hereditary, or We didn't know where this cancer just came from out of nowhere. No, it didn't. Some of the culprit is some of these chemicals that we don't even realize are in our foods. Okay, so it goes on to say that every once in a while, I would hear something crazy from China like this and was always wary of food from China for this reason. And you have to think not only is the food being shipped here from the other side of the world, just think of what could happen during the time and the possible exposure of contamination. But beyond that, look at the certain Chinese companies that are doing what they're doing to the food, making it fake, eating fake food, and you think it's real food, and it is cheap and humanly possible. China is using their innovation methods to make cheap technologically products like toys and other consumer goods and products, and applying it in that mindset to food as well, which is absolutely dangerous. Okay. Imported foods to avoid. Okay. Excuse the articles. Tilapia fish. All right. It's commonly a fish farmed in China. And these fish are some of the worst, most toxic, unhealthy fish that you can come across. The tilapia fish will eat anything. Comparable to the bottom feeder fish, fish farming is a small pool of wastewater that the fish live in. And it's one of the worst fish to purchase and you could buy. And it's commonly known in China as the seafood farmers that won't let their children eat the seafood that they farm. That should tell you something if they won't even let their own people eat this food. So 80% of the tilapia in America comes from China. Codfish, that's another product or type of fish, rather, that is a fish that is farmed in China. And this fish is not healthy and lives in its own waste. Currently, just over 50% of the American cod comes from China. Chinese apple juice, okay? Believe it or not, approximately 50% of the apple juice sold in the U.S. comes from China. China is the largest pesticide producing country in the world, and they haven't even begun to address pesticides or chemical residue on foods. So I recommend completely avoiding apple juice for yourself and your children. Fruit juice is too rich in sugar and is better mixed with vegetable juice for your blood sugar level. So processed mushrooms as well. U.S. inspectors have found tainted mushrooms from China. Some manufacturers in China go so far as to label these processed mushrooms organic and to increase their profits. If you do the Google search, you'll find that there are many mystery mushrooms in China, completely fake. 34% of the processed mushrooms from China. Do your best to know your source and buy local or true organic foods. Chinese garlic. Okay. U.S. inspectors have also found tainted garlic from China. And the garlic from China is sprayed with chemicals more than abundantly than this garlic leaves a bad aftertaste that of a chemical concoction. 31% of garlic sold in the U.S. is from China. Chicken, in 2013, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, approved the sale of Chinese chicken in America, and many food safety experts are concerned with the quality of this chicken, as China is a country where avian influenza and foodborne illness are very common. Beyond that, China produces more pesticides than any other country in the world and is polluted by not only that, but mass production and industry. So 7, there's plastic rice. Believe it or not, plastic rice that people here in the States are eating. And it's cancerous. As I mentioned previously in this article, fake plastic rice is being produced. And it is believed that it is actually made from potatoes and a fake synthetic resin. When boiled, the rice stays hard and doesn't cook like regular rice. So it is believed that the long-term effects of this food could be very cancerous. So also number 8, sold as black pepper, it's mud. A vendor in China collected mud and sold it as black pepper, and also took flour and sold it as white pepper. So call it whatever you want and sell it away. And that's what the Chinese are good for doing. So the Chinese don't have a lot of due diligence in their food and safety regulatory systems. So not that these are the always the great, great as just look at America. So we have standards, but very low standards at best. So number 9, industrial salt. Industrial salt is unfit for human consumption, yet industrial salt was sold as table salt for 13 years. So why are we wondering that the U.S. and America has so much cancer and so much pollutants in our foods? Industrial salt can cause both mental and physical issues, hyperthyroid problems, and as well as reproductive system disorders. And number 10, green peas. Yet another crazy out of this world scenario. I need a t-shirt that says only in China at this point, fake green peas, yes, they exist in China, were found in 2005 and may still be produced to this day. These fake green peas or fake peas were created with snow peas and soybean along with green dye and sodium metabisulfite. It's a chemical that is used as a bleach. Yes, believe it or not, a chemical used as a bleach. So I'm going to click off of this to keep this from conflicting. Okay, so it was used as bleach and as a preservative. This dye is banned to the use on produce because it causes cancer. They say it may cause cancer, but it probably does if it's bleach and used as a preservative, as well as inhibits the body's natural ability to absorb calcium. So the green peas also didn't soften when they were boiled, and the water turned an unnatural green. So avoid green peas that are coming from China. So in my humble opinion, food from China is some of the worst food you can get on the planet. And so as I have mentioned, China produces more pesticides than any other country in the world, meaning your food is most likely to be laced with pesticides. It is one of the most polluted regions in the entire world. 70% of the rivers are polluted, and the air is very toxic, and sheer volume production of the products there leaves a lot of toxic levels and byproducts as waste and leaks into the environment as well. And so take this one fact by air of Beijing, China is so polluted that breathing it actually does as much damage to the lungs as smoking 40 cigarettes a day. That's the new study that what it says as of 2015. That's what it was saying. We don't even want to know what it would say now. It's probably a lot worse than that. And so how can you tell if your apple juice, your garlics, your mushrooms are from China? It's difficult to tell. So this is why I recommend shopping locally at the farmer's market and getting to know your farmer or supplier. And who's going to do that in America? Most times people don't have a lot of time. We live quick and fast. We eat quick and fast. We go to the grocery store. We purchase our items. If we even had time to write a list, and we go ahead and we buy those items without even checking where it's from. And we eat it. And that's pretty much that story. So ask questions at your health food grocery store. Ask questions. Or in other words, you would have to look and see and look at the packaging. And sometimes that may not even tell you all the story. So use your cell phone to Google things too as well. Google it in the store before you purchase it. But here are even more foods to avoid from China. So they have a list of other foods that are just as harmful. And so That might be a part of an ad. So excuse me for that. So top 10 toxic fake food items produced in China. And so this is alt, alt, what is it? And so let's see how this comes in. Hopefully it does. If it doesn't, well, yeah, it is coming in clear. Walnut stuffed with cement. Okay. And so these are some of the things you're going to see. So brace yourself. Making beef out of pork. Because pork is less expensive in China. So some restaurants have sold it instead of beef. So they make the beef. They say it's beef, but it's really pork. Okay. And they marinate it probably in beef juice. And it says, listen to this. Because pork is less expensive in China, some restaurants have sold it instead of beef, but not before they perform some chemistry on this product. What they use are beef extracts, and they glaze this meat, okay, which is really pork, and they marinate the meat in for about 90 minutes, and doctors have advised people to stay away from the fake products because what it does is in long-term use, it may cause a slow poisoning and deformity and even cancer. So you notice most of these things are very cancerous. And what do we have a lot going on in the US? A lot of issues with cancer. And so these are the fake peas. Baby formula. Fake instant baby formula. Made of chalk. And so children will develop the big head disease, which made their heads swell and the rest of their body slowly deteriorate. Industrial salts that are sold as table salts. They're unfit for human consumption, yet it is much cheaper to get and purchase from this country. So which is why 788 tons of it was sold by at least 12 people over the course of 13 years as table salt. Industrial salt can cause mental and physical issues and hyperthyroid problems and reproductive problems. Mud that sold as black pepper. So some of these things I went over. Fake sweet potato noodles. And so if you look at some of the ingredients that they have in them, you'll be like, oh no, no way, no way. Industrial ink used to give them a purple color and paraffin wax. Fake ginseng. And isn't that a big commodity a big thing that people like? They say, oh, ginseng is good. It has good for your teeth, or it's good for, and it's fake. Okay, and so, and it's supposed to have like a medicinal purpose. So ginseng root is a popular medicinal plant used as a tonic in China over about 3,000 years. And so according to Bond TV, prices for ginseng have increased rapidly, pushing many ginseng retailers to figure out a way to keep making that profit. So their solution was to boil the roots in sugar and which makes them much heavier and therefore more profitable. So Chinese medicine experts and the National Institute for Food and Drug Control, Wei Feng, said that this is a problematic issue, not only because the retailers are ripping off the customers, but also because boiling ginseng in sugar might strip it from its most of its medicinal value, which basically you're not really getting any value out of it like people would think they were. And so the test showed that while natural ginseng has 20% content of sugar, this fake one is about 70%. So a whole lot more sugar added to it just to preserve it or to make it look as though you're getting a lot more, when really you're getting more sugar than what ginseng. So, or more sugar that's not good for you, rather. So it can do little to improve people's health. It's doing the opposite. And then you're getting this plastic rice that is made from synthetic resin, a fake rice that has been seized in China, and is believed that much of this produce is from potatoes combined with synthetic resin. Just like the peas, the rice stays hard after you boil it, and also like the peas, it long-term consumption could cause cancer. And so basically that's pretty much that. And so I thought I would add that in there additionally, because some people don't realize there are a lot of products that they send over here from imitation eggs. You're looking at it right here. They send over from China. Okay, so these eggs are imitation eggs. You're looking at it. Take a good look at it, okay? Some Chinese websites have come out with an industrial video of how to make $70 a day by producing and selling fake eggs, okay? The chemicals that are required are alginic acid, potassium alum, gelatin, calcium chloride water, and artificial color. The eggshells are made from calcium carbonate, and so eating these eggs may cause memory loss and dementia. And so some people think this is an egg. And if you see it, if you didn't know any better, you would assume that it is, when it's in fact fake and it's all chemical produced. And so I thought I would mention that as well. And so you see the woman in the lab holding it, and she's showing you. And so you can tell that something's really wrong with it. And believe it or not, people are getting these things and they're being fooled. So I know I probably shared a lot too much, and maybe some people are now, their gig is up. And so anyway, okay. So originally I was over here. And so I was also going into the whole spiel about some of the products that are in 99-cent stores. So there are 11 toxic items found in dollar stores, okay? And so there's even more than that. 81% of Dollar Tree products are tested positive for carcinogenics. And I have to be honest with you guys, it also comes from China. And so I think some people know and some people aren't really full aware of it. And so it's hard for people to comprehend that. But I have to be honest too, I'm a victim of this, because Dollar Tree is inexpensive and it's cool. You see all these great products in there, and they're $1 and they're cheap. And some of them are even cool to buy, you think, at the time. So dollar store products are teeming with toxic chemicals, okay? Dollar stores can be a godsend for many struggling people, especially they usually put these Dollar Tree stores all in, definitely in poor neighborhoods, because you're on a fixed income or you don't really have a lot of money. And so you're trying to stretch your dollar as far as possible. So, however, a new report has suggested that these stores might not be as wonderful as they seem to be. In fact, they might be seriously damaging to people's health. A new report published that the Campaign for Healthier Solutions, entitled "A Day Late and $1 Short." And so I just thought that this was important to bring this out, because I know some people are like, wow, this is really heavy duty stuff. but it does tell you that discount retailers are falling behind on safer chemicals, has revealed that some of the serious problems in the production of many dollar store products. The study involved testing 164 products from the range of different discount retailers across 6 states in America. Shockingly, the researchers discovered that more than 81% of these products contain hazardous chemicals at levels that exceed these outlined by government regulations. So even worse, 49% of these products contain more than 2 hazardous chemicals at levels exceeding that which is considered safe. And so this is your typical Dollar Tree store. A lot of plentiful items, you know, economical. You can stretch your dollar with, very attractive, bright, it stands out. You go in, you're like, let me, spend a couple of dollars on this item and that item. Each of the 164 products was tested for a range of dangerous chemicals, including phthalates, polyvinyl chloride plastics, PVC, and vinyl, and various toxic metals, including lead. So each of these substances comes with serious health risks. And so phthalates have been identified as increasing the risk of cancer in those who are exposed to it, as well as learning disabilities, diabetes, reduction in fertility, and birth defects if pregnant women are exposed to these chemicals. So PVC is associated with respiratory problems, can cause increased heart rates of asthma, and in those exposed to it at high levels. And lead is considered to be one of the most dangerous metals and is associated with inhibiting brain development in children, leading to low IQs and increased rate of learning disabilities. And so what do we have here in America? A lot of kids that are in special ed are needing special ed services, or they are sick with a lot of these types of issues. And so this report is a particular alarming report. Consider that the dollar stores quite often produce products directly marketed to children, whose are the special risk of developing serious health issues and problems later in life if they're exposed to these high levels of dangerous chemicals. So furthermore, dollar stores tend to be located, like I said, I'm pretty much stepping ahead of myself reading this article, but a lot of these stores are in low-income neighborhoods where they know we're going to frequent them, particularly those populated with communities of people of color, Black people and Hispanic people, and Mexican too, and people which we're all people of color, who live in these areas are less likely to have comprehensive health insurance plans than the rest of the population. So this means that they are more likely to die and suffer from serious illness effects if they do become ill after continuous exposure to these chemicals. And so the report stated that the largest dollar store chains in a unique position to benefit the health and welfare of many communities of color and low-income communities, where they operate and grow and benefit in their own business by providing safe products. What has been missing in these discount retailer sectors so far, with the exception of a few important but limited actions, has been sustained focus on this issue at the top corporate leadership level and board corporate policies to identify and phase out the harmful chemicals across supply chains. And so the Campaign for Healthier Solutions has followed up their report with a letter to the Dollar Tree store companies, encouraging them to stop the sale of the products that are containing all these toxic chemicals. So at such high levels, and urging them to look at the new modes of development, which will be able to cut these toxic chemicals out of the production line. So the toxic chemicals that are found in Dollar Tree store products. And so the people that are in the neighborhoods some people have understood that they even sell medicines in the Dollar Tree store. If you go down some of the aisles, they sell medicines, things that you can take, like pain relievers. Who knows what's in them? If they put things in the kids' toys that could be cancerous or toxic, what do you think they're putting in the food products and in some of the things that people take for a headache? That these are people, if you can't afford to go to Rite Aid and CVS and spend that extra couple of dollars, you're trying to get a quick, let me take a few of these ibuprofen pills. You don't know what is all in them. So I'm going to play this video and then I'll in this whole video right here.
Welcome back. 2 dozen activists gathered outside the headquarters of the 99-cent stores today to call attention to a report that claims toxic chemicals are in many of the store's products. ATVM's Brian Mintomo spoke to protesters about what they wanted the company to do.
Members of the Campaign for Healthier Solutions and other community organizations took their demands to the 99-cent store headquarters in Commerce. The activists cite their report released earlier this year, which found that 81% of products at the 4 major dollar store chains contain hazardous chemicals like lead.
And what we're asking for is for you to go to your suppliers and tell them, demand from them that they remove these toxic chemicals from the products that they sell.
Some say the report left them concerned for the well-being of their children.
I had bought those for my grandchildren, and I would put them in their stocking stuffers for Christmas. When I saw that it was the exact same children's makeup kit, I called my daughter-in-law and I told her, get rid of that because those are highly contaminated with lead.
The activists delivered a petition with 150,000 signatures gathered from change.org. Jose Bravo and other advocates with the Campaign for Healthier Solutions just delivered the petitions to 99-cent store corporate headquarters right behind me. In a statement, the company said 99-cent only stores is committed to providing safe, quality products to its customers, including national brands that meet or exceed applicable federal and state requirements. Activists say they plan to deliver the petition to other major dollar store chains next week. In Los Angeles, Brian Bencup.
Okay, so that concludes that video. And so they also have fast foods in Dollar Tree stores. And so there's so many things that are in Dollar Tree stores and 99-cent stores that you wouldn't believe that people take for granted. And they think, oh, and if you're a person that's on a fixed income, or you're in a where you only make so much money, and those stores, like it said in the beginning when it had its intro, they're a godsend. And so you look at those stores and you say, wow, this will help me stretch my dollar so I can do a lot more. And they tend to put these particular stores right in neighborhoods where they know that people who don't have a lot of money and are low income, are poor people, are going to frequent them. And so rarely do you really hear of people who are, and I suppose maybe some will, but a lot of times I will say this, that in schools, because special education has a lack, or claims they have, let's say this, claim they have a lack of funding. Some of the special education teachers will go to these Dollar Tree stores because they are complaining they don't get paid very well at their jobs, and they're trying to make their dollar stretch. So in order to do activities, there's aisles where they have toys, or they have games, or they have educational type of things for kids, and they'll go to these stores and they'll buy some of the things out of these stores and put it in the classroom. Now, I probably really said a whole lot here, but it's true. And if these stores have all these chemicals and things, and then kids are not only getting them from their parents at home that don't know any better, or maybe they can't afford anything else, but also in the classroom, it comes from school. So anyway, with that being said, I'm going to let this go. And that pretty much concludes this video. And it starts, all this starts from China. China imports.